My little brother's here. Man, we grew up with two dads with larger-than-life personalities. Where's your headspace now?
I am in a hopeful place. I've gone through a lot, and I believe that the experiences that I have lived through have qualified me to go further. Some of the trials and tribulations that I faced, even in my young life, have enabled me to persevere.
What's the biggest mistake you've made? Don't lie.
The biggest mistake that I've made is not listening to sound advice. I found myself mixed up in some relationships that I shouldn't have been in. I was out there. I played the field. I've had some things that have really rocked me to my core. As a pastor, it could hurt you. It could hurt your ministry and your credibility. I had my father pull me to the side. I'll never forget, back in his dressing room one Sunday after service, he said, "Hey man, you're making it hard on yourself." He says, "But if you don't settle down and recognize what you're doing, you're gonna crash into a wall."
Did I just see a tear glaze your eye?
Yeah.
How'd you learn and find out about your father's drug addiction? Welcome to another episode of Legacy Conversations. It would be good if y'all could let me know what you think. I'm trying my best. To represent. But on this episode of Legacy Conversations, my little brother's here. Man, we grew up with two dads with larger-than-life personalities, and it's really good to sit down with him. Welcome to the Legacy Conversations studio.
Yes.
As the host of Legacy Conversations, I welcome Bishop Quincy Carswell II.
Yes. Man, you crazy.
I'm sorry.
I appreciate it.
I had a brain fart. He corrected me when we first started. No, I'm the second.
I'm the second. Yeah.
I'm the second, not junior.
It's all good. You all know me as Quinn. Anyway. And so all of these long names and titles and all of that, when you really just know me. You
stopped me before I said Bishop.
Yeah, it's all good. Yeah, it's all good. You're my big brother. So,
all right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, cute. How about that for the day?
Fine.
Cute,
That's fine.
Cute.
That's fine.
Man.
Glad to be here.
And glad to have you. I think that one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on is for what you've had to endure.
Yes.
In ministry, you're having to come behind your father and reconfigure, reposition covenant.
Right.
Having made your own errors, and I remember those days when you used to have a Charger.
I sure did.
Yep, you were doing them car shows. Yep,
souped up, loudest thing on the road.
Yep, I remember those days.
Yeah.
Being colorful.
Yeah.
Not just in your dress, that is obvious, but being colorful to the point of your preaching.
Yes, thank you.
Where's your headspace now?
Well, I'm in a better place.
How about today as we sit here?
Today, it's a great question. I am in a hopeful place. Mm-hmm. Where the Lord has me now is an optimistic place, not just considering what I've gone through, where I've been, but where I am going. I've gone through a lot, and I believe that the experiences that I have lived through have qualified me to go further. Mm-hmm. Some of the trials and tribulations that I've faced, even in my young life, have enabled me to persevere, which is what I learned from my father.
I was about to say, where'd you get it from?
From my dad.
Yep.
My dad was resilient. He was, he was often referred to him as, he takes a licking, but he keeps on ticking. Mm-hmm. He never stopped. No matter what got in his way, he always persevered, always persevered. And so I take that because that is in my mind, that is the real essence of legacy and ministry. Ministry won't always go the way you want it to go. You know, life won't always go the way you want it to go. But many times, you know, when you look at it, you got to say, are you going to stop here? Or are you going to keep going?
Yep. And so important. And I know that the audience of those who have heard these, they like the gritty stuff.
Yeah.
You know, the whole point and the purpose of Legacy Conversations is to help people get to a place where they're establishing their own legacy.
Sure.
As they're looking through the eyes and the lens of others who have made some mistakes,
right,
who have took the long way to Walmart, all those other kinds of things. And, you know, being a preacher, and this show isn't just for preachers. It's, we had an R&B singer that was on. We've had David and Tamala Man.
Yeah.
So it's about principles. It's about extracting principles.
Sure.
I'm trying to figure out what I want to ask you first. Do I want to start in your personal life or in ministry? What's the biggest mistake you've made? Don't lie. You know, we always want to put that, you know, I didn't flush the toilet.
Yeah.
Don't give me that. Don't give me that stuff that's in the toilet.
The biggest mistake that I've made is not listening to sound advice from people who were tried, who had gone through.
I'm not going to let you give me this.
The similar things.
Church.
No, I'm serious, because a lot of mistakes that I've made in my life have been because I didn't listen. Okay. I simply didn't listen. I mean, my dad would tell me. Was
it because, you know, your dad was not the most humble man? He was the opposite of humble is, in this situation, is confident.
Confident, absolutely.
He loved and embraced who he was.
Absolutely.
How he put himself on display.
Right.
What kept you from what made you stubborn not to listen?
Well, I'm the opposite of humble. It's a task for me to remain humble.
So you're confident?
I'm confident.
Or arrogant?
Oh, no, I'm confident. Definitely not arrogant, but definitely I'm confident. I know who I am.
Do people say that you're arrogant?
Some maybe. Some maybe. I think that comes with the name because of the misinterpretation of my father. You know, Dad had been around since the 70s in Atlanta, and many people may have interpreted his walk, the way he presented himself as an arrogance, but it was confidence. And,
what's the difference in arrogance and confidence?
To me, arrogance is that which you know you're good at, you know you can do good, you know that you're good. For instance, you're a good singer, you're a good preacher, you're a good commentator, you're a good podcaster, you're a good conversationalist. However, you carry it in a way that demeans other people and their contributions. Dad wasn't like that. He was a collaborator. When you're confident, you know what God has given you. You know what you're good at, and you carry it with a certain humbleness, certain meekness. Confidence, yes, I'm confident, but at the same time, I realize that I'm not the best to ever do it. I'm still working on myself. I'm still learning. I'm still getting better.
All right. So if you say that the biggest mistake that you made, and I hope that you come up with an instance, because I'm not going to let you off the hook.
I know you're not.
Yeah, so I'm giving you a little time to get yourself together. If you, so you said it's because you did not listen.
Yes.
You didn't listen to who, and what didn't you listen about?
So, particularly my father, there were some things that I had to live to learn. Some mistakes I had to make in order to say, ouch, that hurt me, and never do it again. My father, in all of his wisdom that he possessed, would oftentimes tell me, Quinn, if you do this, this is going to happen. If you go down the street speeding, you're going to run into some trouble. You're going to get in an accident. But me, I had to try it. I had to live it for myself. Now, there were just some things that he did that I just wouldn't do, like the drug thing. You know, I never did drugs. The drinking thing, never did that. Found myself mixed up in some relationships that I shouldn't have been in, with people I shouldn't have been with. And my father, I would always say, sometimes I guess you just got to live through it. You have to go through it to understand that it hurts you and to understand that I've been there too. So that's what I take as my life struggles, is not really listening to sound advice. I'm learning now, even at 40 years old, how to listen better.
So you mentioned kind of glazed over the relationship thing.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean?
The relationship with my dad?
No, you said you glazed over your dad told you about relationships.
So, there were some relationships that I had,
women?
with women. Absolutely.
Okay.
With women, where I had to learn how to carry myself. And
were you out there?
I was out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was out there, but not in a hoish way.
Yeah.
I played the field. I dated because I wanted to know what I could live with for the rest of my life.
All right, so I get it. Katie Bowe says that he advises men not to get married until they're at least 30 so they can experience a little bit of life.
That's sound advice.
Yep.
That's sound advice.
You would listen to that?
Yes, absolutely.
Now, you wouldn't listen to it then?
Well, I think by the time I got married, I was ready to be married. Mm-hmm. I prayed to God. I said, Lord, the next woman that I involve myself with, make her my wife.
All right, so I'm going to go back to something because remember, those that are watching there's some young people that watch.
Sure.
There's some older people that watch.
Sure.
There are some of those who are not in ministry, those that are in ministry. And people like me who maybe don't understand the difference, unless we're playing a game of semantics.
Okay.
And I like the way you broke down confidence and arrogance. That was good. That was beautiful. But to be outside and to be, your word, a hoe, what's the difference?
Well, and I can only speak from my experience, Jay, but, I started preaching, and I'm putting it to you like this. I'm going to get to your point, your question. I started preaching when I was 18 years old. My first taste of freedom came at 17, 18 years old, moving from my parents into the college lifestyle, being opened up to all these possibilities, new connections, and so on and so forth. I played the field. I wanted to see what type of woman I liked. I wanted to see, what I was capable of, as far as the dating scene. Went through all of that. And in all of that, I'll say this, I discovered what I didn't like and what I liked. I discovered what I could tolerate and what I wouldn't tolerate. And I say that now because as I look back on it, and I know we're going to go back. I know you're going to pull something else out of this, but when I was dating and playing the scene, man, I was trying to figure out who I was, trying to find myself in other people, in other women. And that process was very revealing to me. And meanwhile, when you got a father like Bishop Quincy Carswell, who's watching from the sidelines and seeing how you're operating, sometimes him pulling you back in, saying that's not the one for you. You don't need to be. It was kind of harsh at times, but at the same time, it was I needed a reality check. I needed a reality check. I had to have my father sit me down and talk to me.
So what's the difference in a hoe and being outside?
A hoe. is one I
I
believe.
keep quoting you, right?
Yeah, I know you keep doing
Okay,
it.
all right. You said it.
Yeah.
All right. So you turned on this pot of water and clicked boil.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
because here's the thing. As preachers, I think we can live a life that is not commensurate and not in line with Scripture.
Right.
But then I also think that much like David, you know, God makes, and this is no excuse, but God does take mistakes and decisions that we make, and through the birth line, you know, we end up with the Messiah.
Yeah.
And I hear that part. I hear your contrition. I hear your recognition of the life that you lived. Based on what you wanted, what you liked, what you didn't like.
Yeah.
But preachers can be called hoes.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah.
The same way as men and women even in the world.
Right.
You know, and we know what hoeing means.
Yeah, yeah,
okay.
yeah.
All right. So to play the field.
Yeah. Is not the same.
It seems to me like it would be a synonym.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're a person before you're a preacher, man. And at the end of the day, you know, I had to experience life and living, and I wasn't going to allow my title as a preacher or even a pastor, because I was preaching and pastoring before I got married, to hold me back from living a life or experiencing a life that could eventually lead me to the place of where I am now. I wasn't a hoe by no stretch of the imagination. I wasn't. I dated a lot, but with
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You know, you didn't get to that comma, that semicolon quick enough. I dated hoes.
Your words, not mine. I don't want them to watch this and then say that.
No, my words. With camera, I said that. I said
please.
that. Me.
Yeah.
But the reason why is because I didn't wait for the comma.
Yeah.
You know, and so we skip past that one. We go on, you know. Yeah. I was not a hoe. I played the field.
Yeah, I played the field. You know, and that's where most of my reeling in, if you will, came from. My dad was very protective of me. And I think sometimes he was more so protective of his name, you know, and me not establishing a name that would, or establishing something that would bring shame to his name. Even while I was being a young man, I mean, my dad would get up in the pulpit and say, and tell the church, listen, Quinn is a young man. Let him be a young man. If you see him dating, if you see him out having a good time, don't try to keep him in a box. You know, let him be a young man. He's probably out there dating one of your daughters. You know, he's probably out there.
That sounds just like it.
Yeah. You know, but it's the reality of it all. You know, I had the opportunity to explore and to see what I liked prior to becoming married. No, the hoeing wasn't really in me. But, you know, I did date. I did find out what my interests were, even as a man of God and as a young man. I went through that phase.
What did it teach you? I think when we start tapping to the flesh, it opens up a side of us that it's hard to put that book back in there. What did it teach you about yourself? Living that kind of life, you know, preaching, doing ministry, pastoring, still playing the field.
Yeah.
What did it teach you about yourself?
It could hurt you. It could hurt your ministry and your credibility. You know, there came a time, you know, I dated women in the church, and women would leave the church when they realized that there was no chance that it would go even further than where it went. I had my father pull me to the side. I'll never forget, back in his dressing room one Sunday after service, he said, "Hey, man, you're making it hard on yourself." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You're a gifted preacher." He said, "You're anointed. God has his hands on you." He says, "But if you don't settle down and recognize what you're doing, you're going to crash into a wall." He says, "Because your credibility will be shot." To your point, to your question, it's a hard thing to come back from a space where you have been engaged in for so long, and not trying to get super spiritual and all of that, but it did take prayer. I reconnected with God in a way to where I had to say farewell and goodbye to some people in my life. I had to cut ties completely with folk. Now, my number hasn't changed in 20 years, but there was some interest that had to be lost. I had to move away from certain people in order to pursue that which I knew I had inside of me.
Yeah. Said a lot.
Yeah.
You said an awful lot. So what is it that came to light for your dad to pull you off to the side? What had you done, or what had he heard?
So there was a young lady who came to the church who...
Had she heard of the tales of Solomon?
No. She came to the church, and she shall remain nameless, but she came to the church, and literally, when she came, I had invited another young lady to the service as well. So, of course, our fathers, they would have us, because we're their pride and joy, sit on the pulpit. And, of course, so Dad is in his seat.
I already like the story, but please don't leave the details out.
Dad is in his seat. I'm in my seat. And then, of course, you have the associate pastor in his seat. When you look out in the congregation, you see one exactly where she's supposed. Were you
preaching today?
I was preaching that Sunday.
Oh, my goodness.
I was preaching that Sunday. And you see one. And then you scour and look at the congregation, you see another. And, after you preach and you're sweating and you're passionate, as how we preach, after service, people want to shake your hand and they want to hug you and take pictures. And so I immediately after preaching gave the blessing and the benediction to the congregation and left out of the church, went into the back office and sat down in my father's seat. Dad comes in maybe about 10 to 15 minutes later and says, "Hey, man, you're supposed to be out there shaking folks' hands and greeting people." He says, "But I know why you're back here." I know why you're back here because so-and-so came to church and so-and-so is there as well. Yeah. And I said, "Yeah, Dad, but that's not the reason. I'm just tired. I'm wet." I'm tired.
God. You can't.
Yeah, so it was a thing of Dad said at that moment, he said, "Son, first of all, I've been there." He said, he talked to me about
I was trying to figure out how to ask that question.
Yeah, he had fallen out in the pulpit, and then multiple women coming to check on him, in the office. And thank God for my granny who's gone on to be with the Lord, Mother Jessie Sally White. She would say, "Y'all move, y'all skeezers move. Gwen," who's my mama, of course, "Gwen, come here, you come in," because you always got to have somebody there to protect you and to watch over you. And so my father said, "Don't worry about it, but you and I going to talk. I'll get them out of here for you." But it came to that moment. It was at that moment, rather, that I realized that something had to shift. Now, mind you, this is long before I met my wife. So let's make sure we put that in. Long before I met my wife, I was trying to figure out.
That's important that you put that in, by the way.
Yes. Yeah. Trying to figure out the woman that I wanted to marry, wanted to spend the rest of my life with, wanted to build with. And I went through some close calls. I went through some trying times. But all I feel was necessary.
Anything come outside of your pandering? Like, were there babies?
No, thank the Lord, no. Absolutely not. I did not father any children outside of marriage. Any connections that I had, they were long gone prior to me getting married.
Yeah.
When I met my wife, I actually gave her my phone and said, I want you to go through it thoroughly. Look at every contact. I said, look at every text message. I want you to see that all of that was in my phone. You laughing. I'm serious. I gave her the phone. Jay, man,
you deleted the content?
No.
Erase call logs?
No, absolutely not.
You said it because you didn't think I was come back.
No, see, you trying to pull it out. No, listen, I gave her everything. She saw some messages she saw, but my wife is not like that, man. She's so confident, man. Around. And she's so, such a woman, man, that she really didn't care for the fact that I let her see my phone, but it was something that I chose to do.
And that speaks to its own merit.
Right.
That you are coming to this marriage open.
Yes.
I'm not hiding anything from my past. Not hiding anything. And I'm also not, I'm not trying to hide anything now. I'm not trying to set I get it. And so I salute that.
Yeah.
I applaud that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
So let me just clarify, and I'm gonna say it again. This is more for the audience.
Sure.
I know, and the connections that I have and the people that I've met have been because of ministry.
Right.
But there are principles that are involved that I think are very important for anybody.
Right.
Such as finding yourself.
Yes.
Being able to know what you want, those kinds of things.
Right.
I think actually in ministry, the principle can even go further. So, guys pastor their church and then some go wrong or, it's like, I don't want a church like that.
Yeah.
So I think the principle continues.
Yes.
And again, the reason why I am asking is because of the larger than life personality that your father was. Your dad was a lot of fun. So much like me, my mother had a greater impact on raising me. Mama was there. She took us to school. She cooked breakfast. She cooked dinner, she was summer school. Mama was doing that because dad was never home.
Right.
But still, there was this affinity, kinship for me and dad, being his son and all those kinds of things. And I'm hearing you use your father, his name and the association quite extensively in the same way.
Yeah.
What'd your father want for you? Did your father want you to pastor Covenant?
I think a part of him did, but a part of him didn't. And let me unpack that. He wanted me to follow in his footsteps. He wanted me to preach. He knew that I would preach. But he didn't want all of the strife, the pain, the trials that come with being a pastor or a preacher. Mm-hmm. All of the things that he went through, he didn't want that for his son. Mm-hmm. And I think no father wants that for their son.
Sure.
He wanted me to be all that God wanted me to, or would want me to be, or had for me to be. But he did not want me to experience betrayal, jealousy, having to deal with the financial pressures of building a church and building a ministry. He didn't want me to go through that, not going through what he went through. Mm-hmm.
Do you hear the legacy in that?
Yes.
I certainly do.
Absolutely.
And I would imagine you do, but I'm pointing out to the audience because I think that legacy is built on wisdom that has gone before us. If legacy is that thing which we leave when we're no longer here, then legacy can be fortified by what it is that we recognize as being wise or being wisdom.
Yeah.
And that's whether he was doing it on purpose or doing it out of love.
Yeah.
It has worked.
Wow.
You know, it has worked for you in that you are standing on his bag of wisdom.
It's been rough.
Yeah.
It's been rough. There've been times when I wanted to quit.
How much do you hear his voice when you are in the place of, say, quit?
Often. When I want to give up, man, I've had some things that have really rocked me to my core. As a pastor, I've had associations that I thought would last forever, just to end in tears. And it's in that moment where I can hear my dad's voice saying, remember who you are. Mm-hmm. Remember your name. Mm-hmm. Remember what I trained you to do. Mm-hmm. It's almost like he's still with me, man. Mm-hmm. You know, I dream about him quite frequently. Mm-hmm. You know, sometimes I can hear his voice while I'm sitting in silence. Mm-hmm. I'm reminded of our conversations that we have, the lessons that I learned from him as it relates to perseverance and getting the job done. You know, I hear his voice a lot, a lot.
Yeah, I remember Dad talking about how he would hear Granddaddy's voice.
Yeah.
And how since he's been gone, since Granddad had been gone, and I know it'll be the same way for me. Even if it's not now, I'm good to quote Dad.
Yes.
Good to have a dad story.
Yeah.
Quote Dad.
Yeah.
How'd you learn and find out about your father's drug addiction?
So that's a good question. Just to give a little context, if you don't mind. So Dad was pastoring and preaching 1975 Tabernacle Baptist Church.
By the way, Tabernacle was jumping.
It was the mega church before mega churches.
And it was Quincy Carswell that had the jump. You know, your daddy was...
wow.
Yeah. He
I never heard it like that.
Wherever he went, it wasn't going to be the same when he left. But anyway,
wow.
Your dad brought the jump.
Yeah, man. So 1975, 22 years old, 22, called to Tabernacle, youngest pastor in the city at the time. Very flamboyant, but could preach, walk the pews, all of that. My father fell to cocaine addiction in 1983, 82, 83. He held it together.
And he told you about this.
He told me about this. So 1992, of course, was when the rubber met the road, so to speak. That's when my father revealed to the congregation that he couldn't preach to them anymore. He couldn't pastor them anymore. He had to go get his life together. And it was
I'm sorry, I interrupted you first.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
And if it's all right, I want to rewind back because you said in 84, it's when the rubber met the road.
No, in 92. 92 was the time. What
happened in 84?
So in 84, that's when he started.
Okay.
You know, 83, 84 was about when he started. And he spent a cycle of years dealing with cocaine addiction, dealing with selling cocaine because he was both a drug dealer and a drug user while pastoring. And 1992, it all reached a head. It was in 92 when he got up before a large congregation, full house, and said, I can't preach to you all anymore. I've got to get my life together. Now, at that time, 1992, I was 7 years old. I was 7. My sister was 11. And so Quinay would remember more of Tabernacle than I do. But I remember, I'll never forget the conversation that my father had with us while we were in the parsonage. When we were sitting on the edge of the bed, he walked in and sat down with us and said, listen, things are going to change, but I guarantee you that the level of your lifestyle won't. And he began to express to us, now being 7 years old, 11 years old, you don't completely understand it all. And so therefore the conversation had to continue throughout the years. We gained a deeper understanding of really what all Dad went through. But it was in that initial moment where he did expose to us that he was addicted to crack cocaine.
How'd it make you feel?
At 7 years old, I didn't know how to feel about it. You know, I didn't know what to think about it. I didn't know what it was. It wasn't until I became an adult, got older, had more intimate conversations with my father to understand.
I get it. My parents divorced when I was 11, 12, 13, somewhere thereabout. It was traumatic. And so the way the brain works is that it puts up guardrails so that certain things aren't remembered, or else it would drive us crazy.
Right.
So when I ask you, what did you think? Sometimes we have those lessons, the learnings, the memories brought back about what it felt like, you know, as a kid. So I'll give you a story.
Sure.
Dad's popularity, lived on a ranch down Cascade. That was when it was a lot of white folk lived that way.
Mm-hmm.
Dad bought the house. I'm 6 months old. And growing up there, you know, Dad's popularity is growing in Atlanta and nationwide, et cetera. And we had a carport. It wasn't a garage. It was a carport. And for those of you who don't know what a carport is, probably that younger generation, you pull your car in and you got out because it was under a port. Right?
Yeah, that's the carport. Yes.
So I'm sitting, I remember ranch style house. I'm sitting in the very back in my bedroom. I don't remember what I was doing. It was one afternoon and I'm sitting there and I start hearing something on the ceiling.
Yeah.
And what I'm hearing begins to move. I'm like, that's interesting. And I followed footsteps all the way down to where the kitchen was, which is just on the other side of the door where the carport was.
Right.
And I got my mom off the phone. She was on the phone. I pointed out to her and called the police.
Mm-hmm.
And when the police got there and we opened the door, it was a can of gas with matches that had been lit, that were all, or attempted to be lit, all around the gas can.
Right.
I remember that. I remember how afraid I was. And since Dad was never at home, I got placed on me being the man of the house, which no child that age deserves.
Right.
That's why I asked the question.
Yeah.
You know, if there's anything in your recollection that you remember about your dad telling you that. I understand it was later, just kind of digging a little.
Yeah. At 7 years old, Jay, man, I literally was into toys and Power Rangers and all of that. Hear me though. So the level of living that we dealt with and that we had, now I experienced, my dad, though he told us at that moment, it wasn't a conversation that I fully understood.
Even knew to have.
Or even knew to have.
I got you.
Because at that time, you know, my father maintained to me the person who I thought he was, I knew him to be, which was, he's my hero, he's my dad. And we're just moving from this place to this place. Now, we were kicked out of the parsonage, we moved into a small hood house, probably no bigger than this studio in Southwest Atlanta, maybe about 5 miles from where we used to live. And even in that moment, we spent 3 years in that house. Even in those moments, in that time, you know, if it hadn't been for certain people like Reverend Timothy Fleming, you know, for Donald Trimble, you know, who made sure that my father had money in his pocket. If it had not been for my mother, who worked at the time at City of Atlanta, I think she endured more of the embarrassment in that moment than I did. But when I became older, I started hearing things and seeing things. And so as I'm growing up, middle school, high school, and I'm hearing things and seeing things, I go to my father and I said, Dad, can you give me more insight on what actually happened between you and Tabernacle? What happened with the drugs? What happened with all the women? All of that. And it was in that moment, and several other moments, but in that moment where my dad was transparent with me about everything. In my adult life, we had a heart to heart. We would bump heads all the time, Jay. Behind the scenes, on the scenes, there were just some things about me doing stuff and how I wanted to do it.
Alpha males.
Come on.
Yeah.
And I was saying to my father, like, hey, this is how it should go. No,
Simba.
This is how it should go. Well, I'm going to do it like this. And anybody that's around, you going to do it how I say do it. Right? But my father and I, we would bump heads. And there was a time, I would never forget, I had moved into my apartment. And he came over my house about 11 o'clock at night. And we stayed up till about 4 o'clock in the morning talking about the mistakes that he had made. And that was the first time that I could really remember where I saw my dad break down in front of me and cry. My dad's a strong man, big guy, you know, never had seen him cry unless it was the Holy Ghost or the Spirit. But outside of that, never really saw him be vulnerable. And in that moment, it was almost as if I became the father and he was like the son.
Did I just see a tear glaze your eye?
Yeah.
Kind of heard it in your voice.
Yeah.
Just a slight tremble.
Yeah.
What you miss about him?
Man, so much. So much. I mean, he was my best friend. Nothing in the world that I couldn't bring to him, talk to him about. You know, we had Wesley during the pandemic, my wife and I, and he was actually born on my parents' anniversary, May the 3rd. And we always say Wesley is just like Dad. He would have been Dad's boy for real. You know, I miss not just his preaching prowess and all of that. I just miss having my friend that I could talk to, who I could bounce things off of and not feel judgment or feel like a novice or feel like a beginner, but that somebody who would just say, you know, son, it's going to be all right. This is how you handle this. This is how you do this. You know, these last 6 years, Jay, have been transformative. Yes. I've had ups, I've had downs. I've accomplished a lot of things, but one of the things is not having my dad there to actually be a part of it with me has been one of the most trying things of my life.
We share that.
Yeah.
We share that because when I left Salem, it got pretty bad there.
Yeah.
And I had so many accomplishments that I wanted Dad to be a part of. And he wasn't.
Yeah.
And he wasn't because of his own pain and his own hurt and his baby.
Yeah.
Me and my dad were best friends as well.
Yes.
So I know what that feels like, to have a living parent that you want to share some things with.
Right.
And can't. Not because you don't want to, but out of your pain and out of their pain,
Yeah.
you just can't.
Yes.
And here's the reason why I talk about this. It's because Dad has talked about this.
Right.
I would never throw him under the bus.
Right.
I would never say something he hadn't said. He was my first episode on the Legacy Conversations,
I
and
saw it. Powerful.
I wouldn't do that to him.
Powerful, man.
But for the purpose of you and I, thank you. For the purpose of you and I and our relationship and growing up with who it is that we grew up as our fathers, and for the purpose of the audience that could have some kind of schism or missing a parent.
Yes.
Or choosing to go out on your own, like me or like you.
Mm-hmm.
Because you and your dad, the alpha, the male alpha, or just even whatever it is. I mean, I think that can be real hard on a young man, especially when they're not there. Yeah. Unfortunately and fortunately, I start thinking about when Dad is gone. Our relationship has mended and continues to mend.
That's good. But
not to be able to, like I said, I was going by the checker club when I leave it.
Yeah.
Because he plays checkers just to see if he was there. I know that there'll be a day in which I won't be able to do that.
Yeah, man.
But I also know that for the rest of my life, I will hear his voice.
Getting that phone call. Son, where are you? Dad, I'm moving about the city. Everything good? Come by the church. I got something I need to show you. I got to tell you something. Dad, you got me on the phone. Come by the church. That's what he would say often. Where are you at, Quinn? I'm riding, getting ready to head home. Turn around. Come to the church. I want to talk to you. But Dad, you can just talk to me over the phone. No, I want to talk to you here. Come here. I'll wait for you. Then we'll go to Houston's and get something to eat. That was Dad, man. And I missed that. Being able to walk through his office door, and as soon as I walk in, there he is sitting at his desk. Mm-hmm. Never get it back. Yeah. And so I've learned to live with that. Mm-hmm. I have a lot from my dad. He left me not only with a ministry foundation, not only with trinkets and treasures and clothing and all of that, but I have his experiences.
His wisdom.
His wisdom.
Yeah, well, I will beat this in the ground until I'm blue in the face. But that's legacy.
That's legacy.
That's legacy. You will now be able to tell your son, hey, look, I didn't want to listen to your granddaddy.
Yeah.
And I lost a pound of flesh. And this is how I ended up.
Yeah.
I want you to know, son, you can be a lot further along. This is legacy.
Yes.
I don't know that you ever, my kids know about Dad's drug addiction.
Yeah.
Since he has come out with it and it's in a book. But for me to have that conversation with my kids.
Yeah. It's real, man.
Yes.
Real.
But that's legacy.
It's real. See,
that's legacy.
Your dad used to say this, Jay, and I know we got a time limit, but I want to share this with you. Dad used to say this. He said, Quinn, he would say it to Quinay, but mostly to me. He said, I don't want anyone to come to you about me with anything. I want to be the one who you hear it from first. So if there was ever a question concerning my dad, I would say, Dad, what's going on with this? What's happening with this? Or what are they talking about? Well, man, listen, this is what's going on. And to me, that's real. That's transparency. That's not saying I'm gonna take a sabbatical and move away to try to keep hidden the fall. But that is taking ownership of it. You know, my legacy wasn't built just in a pulpit. It was built on perseverance.
And continues to be.
And continues to be.
Man, that could be a part 2 where we talked about the church and what you went through and that whole transition. Our time has been spent.
Let's do it again, man.
I've enjoyed hearing and seeing your affinity for your father.
Thank you.
And I respect you.
Yeah.
I respect you even all the more. And what you've had to live through. And I know that your story being wearing it on your sleeve.
Yeah.
I know that's going to help a whole bunch of people.
Thank you.
A whole bunch of people.
Thank you.
All right. So 1 3-sentence paragraph. 1 3-sentence paragraph.
Okay.
What would you tell people based on what you know could be some of the impact your father had or didn't have as a bit of encouragement for where they are? Just 3 sentences or so.
Well, what I would say is that, first of all, you have to realize where you are, be truthful about where you are, and understand that God can, with wherever you are, God can refashion, he can reform, he can rebirth you. Your now does not determine your future. God can take you from this and put you in that if you're just transparent with him, transparent with yourself. Be real with yourself. Realize your mistakes, realize your falls, learn from them, give it over to God.
Thank you again, sir.
Yeah.
Hope this episode has been a blessing to you as it has been to me.
Absolutely.
As we continue to figure out how it is that we deliberately establish legacy.
Yeah.
Till the next time, your host, Jasper Williams III. Peace.
Bless you.